To talk more about the Menendez brothers case with Jamie White, who's a trial attorney. Jamie, thanks so much for being here. This big show of support for Eric and Lyle Menendez, dozens of their family members, we heard from some of them, gathering in Los Angeles today, holding this news conference, pushing for the release of these brothers who admittedly killed their parents in 1989. What is the strategy as an attorney behind staging a media event like this?
Well, the strategy is very clear, and I think they've said it out loud that, the environment has changed over the last 30-some years. I remember when this trial happened. I was a young man still in college. Since then, I've had the opportunity or lack of opportunity, I suppose, depends on how you look at it, to represent thousands of victims of sexual abuse. And it has changed the way that we approach the laws in these states. But I also want to be objective and fair to some degree, that I've heard from a lot of my clients over even in the last 24 hours who take some exception with this brutal murder being excused by way of what allegedly I think it's important, because there's no proof that these boys actually suffered this crime. It wasn't even allowed into court. And so, it's a fine line that we draw. We definitely live in different times. But these boys had a trial, and this wasn't a crime of passion. And with all due respect, Mark Garagos is a great attorney. I have an enormous amount of respect for him and the work he's done. But this wasn't a situation where somebody was charging into somebody's bedroom. This was a premeditated murder. And I think it's important to note, if we're going to be objective, that the mother in this case, who has been alleged of doing nothing wrong, suffered, I think, 10 shots, ultimately to her head. So it's a tough one. I understand what the family is doing. There is a precedent in this particular county with this particular DA for leniency. That precedent, from my understanding, appears to be more related to nonviolent crimes and drug-related crimes. But nonetheless, there's a precedent. But there is also victims who are very concerned that this sort of violence could hurt their cause, in particular in Michigan, where we are currently trying to pass legislation to give people a chance to enter a courtroom in peace and nonviolence to cure their
you mentioned the climate around sexual abuse concerning men, and we're going to get to that in a bit. But I want to talk about the new evidence, because that's really the headline that started this all. The Los Angeles District Attorney says he is now weighing this new evidence. It's a letter said to have been written years before Jose and Kitty Menendez were killed. We're told this letter is written by Eric Menendez to his cousin, and that it details these allegations of sexual abuse that both Eric and Lyle say that they suffered at the hands of their father. But it's interesting to me because that it's being called new evidence, because when the attorneys for the brothers presented their initial case that ended with this retrial and then subsequently ended with the conviction and sentencing, they did talk about sexual abuse. Sexual abuse took center stage in that case. That was their defense. So I guess my question is, why now? What's this new evidence, and why is the case being examined now?
Well, so Mr. Garagos is a very fine attorney, and it'd be irresponsible for him to not produce to the court any evidence that could shed light on why these acts occurred. But to your point, this was almost, putting a pound on 10 pounds of cake, in the sense where this was not a secret that these allegations have been made. I think what it does do is it creates what, we call a consistent statement at the time of the event. This wasn't something that they concocted up a year ago. This is something that existed at the time that all of this was going on. But it really does go back, in my mind, to, even if this evidence was admissible, which it ended up not being, or available, which it ended up not being, does it really change the environment of sexual assault victims? Is this the environment that we want to live in as a community? I don't know. I'm not passing judgment. I represent literally thousands of these people. But I think there's two sides to the story. I would not be surprised to see them get some relief, but the brutality of this crime it would almost open a door for the unthinkable.
And speaking of getting some relief, Court TV's Vinny Politan, he joined me on the show when we first learned the Los Angeles DA would be re-examining this case. And I want to play a clip from that conversation. Vinny is talking about the progression of punishment in this case, so let's listen.
Then we go from death penalty to life without parole, which really isn't life without parole, and now all of a sudden they can be out, which might be the right thing.
And you're saying you think that's going to happen? They won't be free.
I'm convinced.
Vinny with a hot take there, saying the brothers will be released. We've got 30 seconds for you to answer. What is your take on that?
Well, Vinny's a tough one to argue with. His experience is immeasurable. Again, I think there's a fine line. This DA seems to have a trend, and I think Vinny is predicting that trend will continue, and that is by way of relief. But I do think that there's a line that has to be drawn, and we have a system of laws, and you can't take matters into your own hands. And when you shoot your mother 10 times in the body and ultimately the head, there has to be consequences. And I think the jury made the decision, and I will be somewhat surprised if the judge doesn't honor those jury's decisions.
Trial attorney Jamie White, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.